Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the 2023 Range Rover Sport SVR. Before we get into the video though, as always, if you're going to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get right into it. So Land Rover has already released the new Range Rover Sport. Even though it hasn't hit dealerships yet, we've been able to see a pre-production version of the new Range Rover Sport. And so we can pretty accurately guess what the SVR version of the Sport is going to look like and what it's going to contain from a powertrain perspective. So first off, from an exterior aesthetics perspective, just like the previous generation Range Rover Sport SVR, it's going to have a really aggressive looking hood, and I'm sure that we will get a carbon edition with this new generation Range Rover Sport. We have like a full carbon fiber hood, crazy aggressive bucket seats inside, and tons of other carbon fiber accenting throughout. But again, basically really aggressive hood with venting on the hood to kind of just add to the aggression. Lots of venting on the front end, way more venting than what you see on the regular 2023 Range Rover Sport. Obviously, you're going to need extra venting to cool down the larger engine, and we'll get into the engine in just a moment. But just like the new full-size Range Rover, the Range Rover Sport SVR is going to have massive wheels, 23-inch wheels, which is pretty crazy. It's just something that Land Rover is going for with these new Range Rovers. Is just absolutely enormous wheels. And then going over to the rear, this is where things are going to be a little bit more tame, and that's typically what's happened with the SVR models. So it's going to be mostly a carryover from the regular Range Rover Sport, but we are going to have much more aggressive looking exhaust tips, so they're just going to be larger overall, and that's just kind of what they do right with these sportier vehicles. And it'll obviously have a much more aggressive exhaust note compared to the regular Range Rover Sport, and we'll kind of get into why it's going to be substantially different in just a moment. And then from an interior perspective, I already kind of talked about how there's going to be like bucket seats inside for like a carbon edition, probably like what we have with the current Sport, but there is going to be a more toned down version that'll have just kind of like a more regular interior, because a lot of people want the SVR power, but they don't want, you know, that crazy interior that comes with like the carbon edition, where you've got those really aggressive bucket seats that look cool, but they aren't the most comfortable from a daily driver perspective, and it's not the most practical overall. But the Sport is going to still stick with Land Rover's new minimalist theme inside. So you're not going to have a bunch of buttons all over. They're going to double down on all the controls, just like what they've done with the full size and just like what we've seen so far with their pre-production cars for the new Sport. So just expect a minimalist design, but expect kind of a sportier themed interior. So there is still going to be leather, but expect there to be, you know, some Alcantara thrown throughout, and then carbon fiber as well, because that's just typically what they've done with the Sports, is just basically take the Sport interior, make sure that it's nice and loaded up, because again, the SVR is kind of like the top of the line, so it's going to have the nicest materials, like the nicest leather, but then just some sportier elements throughout, and then obviously, you know, nice sporty paddle shifters in the back of the steering wheel. Now, the most important part you guys have been waiting for is the powertrain. So the previous generation Range Rover Sport SVR used a supercharged 5-liter V8 that went through an 8-speed automatic transmission, and it put out a whopping 575 horsepower and then 516 pound-feet of torque. And for the size that the Sport is, it's just a monstrous amount of power. Sounds amazing too, right? Got some crackles and everything with the exhaust, just an amazing powertrain. Well, the new Sport, it's no longer going to have that powertrain. We all know the powertrain the new Sport's going to have, and that is BMW's 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8. Now, we have to kind of guess on power figures because Range Rover hasn't officially announced anything yet, but in the BMW X5M competition, it produces 617 horsepower and then 553 pound-feet of torque, which is substantially more horsepower and torque compared to the previous generation Sport SVR at only, again, 575 and 516. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that the new Sport SVR will be higher than the 575, 516, but probably not as high as the BMW M5 competition. It might match it, but I don't think it'll exceed it, if that makes sense. So we will get a more powerful Range Rover Sport SVR, which I think is pretty exciting. I've driven quite a few BMW models with that twin-turbo 4.4-liter V8, and it's such a fun powertrain. I've also driven the new full-size Range Rover with that powertrain, and it's a really fun powertrain. And on top of that, because the other versions of the Sport are going to be using a turbocharged inline six or a turbocharged inline six with a hybrid system, that means that the SVR is going to feel really special because it'll be the Sport with a V8. It'll be the Sport that actually sounds really good. Because again, the turbocharged inline six will be great from a performance standpoint and from a fuel economy standpoint, especially with the hybrid that they're releasing, but it won't have the sound. And so the SVR will still have its own special feel. Now, will it sound as crazy and aggressive as the supercharged version that we had with the last generation? No, it won't. But that 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 can sound pretty solid with certain exhaust systems. I've heard it in several BMW models, and I think it sounds great. I love how it performs. And I know a lot of people are going to be commenting on the reliability of this powertrain. And yeah, that is something to definitely bring up. This powertrain has been shown to not be nearly as reliable and as robust as the supercharged 5 liter V8. But I'm sure that BMW and Range Rover, now that they're using this powertrain, are going to figure out something to make it so this powertrain is reliable, because that was something that really improved Land Rover as a brand, and that was their powertrain reliability over the last few years. If you guys don't know, Land Rover actually surpassed Jeep in reliability, and I know that some people are going to be like, well, that's not hard to beat, but think about it for a second. Jeep is the brand that kind of mimics Land Rover as like the budget version, and so you'd think as like, you know, the less expensive version that's not using as nearly as much technology and as crazy powertrains, it would be more reliable, and it's not the case anymore. Land Rover is more reliable than Jeep, and a big part of that is the fact that they've been using these big supercharged 5.0 V8s in a lot of their models, and their turbocharged 3 liter inline six is also really reliable. So hopefully this BMW-derived V8 doesn't, you know, lower down the reliability score and make it so that Jeep is, again, more reliable than Land Rover. But overall, I'm really excited about this new Sport. It's basically going to be faster than the outgoing model. Will it sound better? I mean, that'll be up to, you know, what people think. I don't think it's going to sound as good. I think it's going to sound great, but you just can't beat a supercharged V8. You just really can't. And again, it will have better performance, and then it'll have Range Rover's new minimalist design, which some people really like and some people don't. If you guys want to know my personal opinion, I kind of like it. It's taking some time to grow on me, but the more new Land Rovers that I review with this kind of more minimalist design, the more that I kind of like it. And it seems like a lot of automakers are going for that, where they're making everything kind of flush with the bodywork and with the lights and with all the different elements to kind of give it vehicles more futuristic, sleek design. So I want you guys to let me know what you think about this new Range Rover Sport SVR, if you're considering getting one, or if you're going to go and try to find a new 2022 that is still available on the lot so that you can experience the 5.0 V8, because I've seen quite a few of those on dealer lots, and I would think that they would sell really quick, but they haven't been. They've been sitting on dealer lots, and so I guess that people are just waiting for the new Sport at this point. Anyways, that's going to sum things up. I'll see all of you in that next video.